I found my thrill on Blueberry Hill.
Well, that's great stuff. I was so proud of the president there. I must say, this has nothing to do with partisanship. This is a commander-in-chief meeting with the troops as it was right out of Henry V, actually, a touch of Barry in this case of the night for those soldiers risking their lives over there.
Our hearts are in the trim. They shall have none, I swear. But these my joints, which...
President Obama was very eloquent in Afghanistan. Oh, that's Kevin Branagh from Henry V. Oh, you guys are... Kenneth. It's one of my favorite moments in movie history. That was he just did such a great job. Oh, that's Chris Matthews. It's like Henry V. He's like Lazarus. Remember that? Henry V. Lazarus, thrill going up my leg. Well, God bless him. Joining us now, I am absolutely delighted, and he has a great sense of humor. Don Rumsfeld, former Secretary of Defense for George W. Bush, and of course has held too many positions in government for me to recount. The segment will be over by the time I finish your resume. Secretary Rumsfeld, how are you?
I'm terrific. How are you, Laura?
I'm great. So, what did you make of the president's touchdown in Afghanistan?
Well, my impression is that the strategic agreement that they've entered into is a good thing. It's a good thing for Afghanistan, and it's the right thing for the United States. There's been a great deal accomplished in the Afghanistan effort over the past decade, and I think it would be a shame to allow that to just drift away by inattention. And the strategic partnership agreement is a good thing, and the designation of Afghanistan as a major non-NATO ally is also a correct thing to do, I think.
The president made I think this was a way of bringing up the Bush administration without really bringing up the Bush administration. He raised the issue of why it took so long to get to the point that we arrived at yesterday. Let's listen.
This war has taken longer than most anticipated. In 2002, bin Laden and his lieutenants escaped across the border and established safe haven in Pakistan. America spent nearly 8 years fighting a different war in Iraq.
What was your reaction when you heard that?
Well, I think the President of the United States is in full campaign mode. He seems to be almost incapable of giving a talk without attempting to elevate himself and denigrate someone else.
Well, the idea here is that the reason it's taken so long is because of you and former President Bush.
That seems to be the pattern. There's nothing that's happened that is anything that he would ever take responsibility for. On the other hand, if you think about it, the celebration of 1 year after Osama bin Laden was killed, each president, each administration, uses the capabilities that were developed by their predecessors. And the things they do during their tenure affect their successors. And it seems to me that the accomplishment of killing Osama bin Laden is a huge accomplishment, but it was something that was a result of the better part of a decade of effort, investment in special operations, in intelligence, and the accumulation of information that ultimately led to that event.
The
thing that worries me about it is the fact that there's been a steady stream of information over the past 12 months out of the White House, not out of the Department of Defense. And a lot of it, I think, has concerned the military in the Pentagon and the Department of Defense a great deal, because it by revealing so much information and leaks and photographs and comments, the effect is that it makes it more difficult for our special operations forces to do their job, and it puts them at risk.
Well, in the days right after the killing of bin Laden, I'm sure you remember Secretary of Defense Gates said that it was his understanding that operational details of the killing of bin Laden were not to be released, but he essentially said it's too late for that. They were released. He looked ticked.
Well, he should have been, and everyone in the Department of Defense was, because it didn't come out of the Pentagon. It came out of the White House. Steady leaks of information that I think were harmful to the work that the terrific Special Operations Warriors do. I might mention there is a Special Operations Warriors Foundation. If people want to be helpful to them, it helps those from the families of the fallen. It helps the wounded and their families. And they have a website for the Special Operations Warriors Foundation.
Yeah, we've supported the Special Ops Warrior Foundation in the past. It is a phenomenal organization, and we will make sure to link that up under our guest section on lauraingraham.com. And Secretary Rumsfeld, thank you for raising that. Look, I think people are saying after this quote spiking the football charge that the president's celebrating a little too much and a little too politically. That President Bush landed on the carrier, mission accomplished. Is to say he kind of celebrated before anything was really definitively accomplished. So how can anyone criticize Obama for having his moment when the president before him had his?
Well, I think that's not unfair. The sign was unfortunate. It was not put up there by President Bush. The president did not say the mission was accomplished. He said that major combat operations had been concluded, which is the case, and the sign was unfortunate. But it wasn't the President of the United States, as it is in the case with President Obama, out parading it.
All right, but landing the plane on the carrier, that was pretty cool. I mean, that was very dramatic, right? I mean, he could have just visited the carrier. He landed and he was in full, flight suit. And I loved it because I thought, I was humming a patriotic tune when it was happening. But that's what the other side is bringing up.
Sure.
You guys celebrated and you had your dramatic moment. So for Obama to go to Afghanistan, visit the troops, do a shout back to the troops, why not? It helps them, and it's not a bad thing.
Oh, I think the president going to Afghanistan is fine, and the meeting with the troops. I have no complaint about that at all. I think that the comments that are being made and the campaign political ads that are being run, I think, are unfortunate and unprofessional.
The situation as it stands now in Afghanistan, all these years later, according to the Pentagon report that just came out, is somewhat disturbing. Just as Congress has to, Congress has to release this report every 6 months or so, and the next one comes out in October. Some impressive strides in performance have been made. However, the Taliban remains a resilient and determined enemy that will attempt to regain lost ground and influence the spring and the summer, specifically citing what's happened with the insurgents' haven in Pakistan and how that has not changed at all, really. Basically, the report says not much progress there has been made. Your reaction?
That sounds accurate to me from everything I've heard. The federally administered tribal area on the Pakistan side of the Afghan border has been not under control of the Pakistan government as long as I can remember. It is a tribal area, and the tribes move back and forth across that border between the two countries. It is an enormously difficult thing to manage, just as we found that our border along the Rio Grande has been a hard thing to manage, with a lot of people moving across it that shouldn't be moving across it. The country's a tribal country. It's largely illiterate. It's got difficult neighbors. It's had a decade of occupation by the Soviets. It had decades or years of civil war. It's had drought. It has a lot of problems.
So why is it worth losing another man's life there, or woman's life?
Well, we lost 3,000 people here that were on terrorist raids that were planned in that country, and it seems to me that we are wise to turn the thing basically over to the Afghan people, but to continue to try to help train some of their forces, and that it's been a worthwhile effort for the United States. I think anyone who suggests to the contrary is probably wrong.
Why do you think the public was where the public is right now? I mean, look, these things are complex calculations, and and I'll never forget that day on September 11th. I mean, you were running back into the building, the burning Pentagon building, and trying to help the rescue attempt. This is probably, obviously, the most significant and memorable and dramatic day in your life. However, the public is against this. I mean, they don't think it's worth it anymore, and the polls are fairly devastating. So something isn't connecting with how this is continuing to make us safe, or how this is in America's best interest, given the money, given the manpower, given the lives lost. It's not, it's not equating with the public to mean worthwhile. Why is that?
Well, I think there's people tire of something that lasts that long, and where lives are lost. There's no question about that. On the other hand, if you think of the number of troops we've left in Germany over the decades, the number of troops we've left in Korea over the decades, our assistance in Japan, we have a pattern of, as a country, of contributing to a more stable world. Now, does that mean that those countries are, in every case, are going to turn out perfectly? No. On the other hand, if you think what's happened in Germany or Japan or South Korea, the progress in the decades since those conflicts has been impressive. And my guess is that we have to accept the reality that Afghanistan is a quite different situation. And people will find that there will continue to be people killed there. I hope and pray not our people, but it's a dangerous part of the world.
Yeah, well, they're being killed by our Afghan counterparts. That's the problem. We have 20% of them killed by the people that they're supposed to be training or working with.
And obviously that is going to be reduced and ended over a period of time as our forces move out and as the Afghan security forces take responsibility.
Secretary Rumsfeld, the question of negotiating with the Taliban, the president raised that yesterday, saying, look, if you renounce violence, if. And meanwhile, an hour or two after he left, Taliban orchestrated suicide bombers go into an area, international people live there, building, hidden under burqas, bombs, many children killed, legs, arms, all over the ground, devastation. Taliban claims responsibility. Should we be negotiating with the Taliban?
Well, you certainly can't negotiate with people who go into the marketplace and kill innocent men, women, and children. I mean, that is clear.
Are there reasonable Taliban?
I don't know. I think that in many insurgency situations, the final negotiations have occurred with some elements of those insurgents who, for whatever reason, make a conscious decision to be a part of what's taking place in that country. And whether or not you can find people who have been supporters of Taliban who fit that description and are not the kinds of people who go into the marketplace and kill innocent men, women, and children, I just don't know. I'm too far distant from it. But that has been the case in other countries where, in some instances, you've been able to break off pieces of the insurgents.
Divide and we hope conquer. But so far, it seems like that's been a rough road to try to negotiate with these people. I mean, this is more violent, more despicable, more barbaric, it would seem, by the day. I mean, the pictures of this scene are just horrific. But Secretary of Defense...
the Taliban, think what they did in that country. I mean, there are only 3 nations in the world that recognized Afghanistan under the governance of the Taliban. They were using the soccer stadium to cut off people's heads. Women couldn't go out without a male member of their family. They couldn't go to school. It was a terrible, terrible governing body, the Taliban. So I think anyone who wants to make a deal with that element of the Taliban is chasing the wrong rabbit. It won't work.
Hey, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, before we let you go, it looks like Mr. Chen, the Chinese dissident, is in a, quote, hospital in China. What do you think about the way that's been handled?
I don't know what the private negotiations have been, but I think that it certainly was proper for the United States Embassy there to give him haven. And what arrangements were made that had him leave that haven, which is a not unusual thing for our embassy to provide haven to people, I have no idea what those arrangements might have been.
It's important for, I think, dissidents around the world to know that they won't be let back into the situation where there'll be family and they will be again imprisoned or under house arrest or something else. I certainly hope that's not happening. But Secretary of Defense Don Rumsfeld, I know you're removed from that situation. We appreciate your input on all of these very complicated and important matters. And, of course, the author of Known and Unknown, huge bestseller, also linked on lauraingraham.com. Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, as always, we really appreciate it. Thanks for taking so much time.
Thank you, Laura. I enjoyed it.
All right, you take care. We're going to take a break on The Laura Ingraham Show. Your reaction. Don't go away.
The Laura Ingraham Show.